Welcome to another episode of the How to Do Your 20s podcast. And in this episode, we're going to be talking about turning your passion into a real business, not just one of those side things that you do for fun, but a real business. And I have on the call Jimmy, and Jimmy and his business partner have traveled to over 70 plus countries over the last few years, and they realized that the backpacker backpacks that they were using just sucked. And so they actually went out and did something about it. They actually made their own backpack, and it's the Minaal backpack, which I highly recommend. If you're a backpacker, go and checking out their website and get in one of their backpacks. So first off, Jimmy, thank you so much for coming on the show. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
So first, can you tell us a little bit about your guys' story or your story and how you started this whole Kickstarter, the whole Minaal bag?
Yeah, sure. It really does start with Doug and I, my business partner, Doug and I meeting up way back in the olden days in 2006. We both went to the same university in New Zealand, which is where we're both from, obviously, with this weird accent. And we only met because we were both going on university exchange to Vancouver, Canada. And we spent the year in Vancouver not doing too much college work or school work. It was based around skiing and traveling and sleeping in a van with three other people. And that really solidified our relationship, and we realized that we both had a very strong mutual love for traveling. And when we moved back to New Zealand, we did the typical leave university, get your first jobs, trade up positions, all that sort of stuff. And kept on repeatedly ruining our careers by going traveling crazy. Doug would call me up half an hour before midnight when I was going to bed and say, "Oh, there's a crazy sale on this flight and we've got to go to Asia." And I'd have, it's closing in 30 minutes. And so we'd have to suddenly buy these tickets and tell our bosses the next day that we wouldn't be coming in the next week. So continually, just ruining our careers like that, and then decided, well, we may as well make it our career, and decided to start making travel gear. And the backpack wasn't the first thing we wanted to do, but after a while of thinking about different products, I decided we weren't getting anywhere, kind of going on and off, working and working on our thing on the side. So I went full-time first in early 2012 and moved to Taiwan, which was an interesting choice, but it worked out in the end. And then Doug went full time on it about a year later in early 2013, and it all went from there.
So it's great. A lot of people have these ideas of I want to design a backpack, but the actual designing, and I'm sure you'll agree with me, is a lot more challenging. How did you actually go about taking the steps to design the backpack?
Sorry, you just cut out there pretty bad. I couldn't understand.
Yeah. So, I'll just back up.
Yep.
So having the idea to create a backpack it's a pretty big idea, and I have a lot of friends that have a lot of really big ideas. So how did you go from that idea of I want to create a backpack to actually designing it so it can be a physical product?
Yeah, it's a long process. It's squeezing in a bunch of years into an answer, and it's tough. But I think it was helpful that it was slow. It started out in Doug's brain, as most good things seem to do. So it was his little pet project for a while, and I wasn't super interested in it for some reason for a while. But then when we sat down seriously and talked about it, we figured out, this is really an unfilled niche. There are lots of backpacks out there, but none doing exactly what we want them to do, which is what we'd felt that pain traveling around. So it really was a scratch your own itch sort of thing. Of course, we had absolutely zero background in product design or industrial design. So one of the biggest challenges was always going to be moving it from that conceptual stage, from the feature set that we had imagined into a more technical and realistic situation. And there's a lot of steps in that process, but it ended up being fairly successful.
So if someone has an idea for something, let's say similar, obviously not a backpack, but some kind of product that's going to take some design, what would be the first step you'd recommend for them to take?
I think really the first step is, nailing it in your mind, getting an example set of features or benefits or whatever that you want to hit. What problem are you trying to solve? and then immediately going to the people who you think would use it. Like that's the number 1.1 of anything is like, okay, we want to make a backpack. Okay, well, the first thing to do isn't to go to a designer. It's to go to people who are living a similar lifestyle to you and saying, okay, would you use this? Like, what do you want out of it? Is this appealing to you? And making sure that those people are super honest and don't don't worry about your feelings too much. Really trying to crank the honest feedback. I would say that's the most important first step. And then there's the dark art of turning that feedback into a actual physical product, which is like I say, I mean, I call it a dark art because it's this it's very difficult to prescribe how to do that. You just sponge up all this information and then go into your room and try and synthesize it into something really useful and something that's going in the right direction.
And once you have, like, let's say it all sketched out, all the features, I don't even know, how would you go to, I assume that it's, you go to a Chinese type manufacturer. What do you need to give them so that they can actually take this sketch and this, these list of features and turn it into an actual product?
Yeah, it depends which way you want to go with it. I mean, we tried for a while going at it ourselves. So just sketching it out ourselves with very limited drawing skills and design skills and really trying to communicate in person to various manufacturers in various countries what we were looking for. And that didn't really work out for us. I think we had really high standards and it was quite a relatively complex product compared to what a lot of them were doing usually. And so we regrouped and realized that, we needed to bring in someone or some a group of people or whatever with more experience than us and more ability to render that concept into a format that factories could just follow rather than trying to input their own expertise into, because it seemed to be, design wise, it seemed to be above their abilities to do that to the standard we wanted. So I know that, it is definitely possible. I would never tell people, don't go straight to the manufacturer, because it really depends on the industry and depends on what you're trying to achieve. But I think you need to be, regardless of how you do it, you need to be really, really good at communication. And for us, the communication wasn't enough, and we needed to go and get verbal communication wasn't enough, and we needed to go and get visual communication as well to really get it up to the level that we needed it. But yeah, it's that. We would have never found out that it wasn't going to work going straight to the manufacturer if we didn't just go and do it ourselves. So I think that was a pretty important step along the way.
So once you have the actual product, the next step, at least in my mind, is trying to go onto Kickstarter. And I guess to back up for a second, actually, before you even launched your Kickstarter, what kind of things did you have set in place so that when you launched your Kickstarter, it would be successful? Did you reach out to blogs, or what's that pre-Kickstarter but post what your product is phase like?
Yeah, quite a few steps in that phase. It was I think the early thing that we did that I mentioned already is finding a community. So we found very early on in the piece, while it was still a concept, we found like a digital nomad community that really. They were really the target market or the niche that we were going for. And again, threw that idea in front of them and just said, please be brutally honest. What do you think of this? And luckily it was more positive than it was negative. But of course there was a bunch of constructive stuff in there. That brutal honesty is otherwise known as market validation. So getting that idea and, whichever stage it was in, it didn't matter. We were still going back repeatedly to the community and asking them what they thought. And I think that was the number one reason why it was eventually pretty successful. Another thing was just asking why and why again, endlessly asking why. Because either, when you're doing something new, you ask why enough times and you eventually realize that you really do have to do it the certain way that you're asking about, or you find out that is a total waste of time, and people are just doing it because just because, you know. So I think that asking that challenging question of why do we have to do this? Why should it be done that way? Why can't we do it this way? All that sort of stuff can really make things more efficient and make you see things in a different way. I guess we manually emailed every blogger and media outlet and TV station that we could think of, and I know a lot of people do the mass email blast technique, and I've seen plenty of data to say that it works, but we just didn't really mesh with the vibe of sending out 70,000 emails at once to people without any personalization. So we wrote personal emails to hundreds and hundreds of people, and of course got a healthy dose of repetitive strain injury in our wrist doing that. But it was well worth it, because I think that, you know, the response rate wasn't anywhere near 100%, but it was a lot higher than if we'd just sent out a mass non-personalized email, and we really got some good responses. And you know, even people who didn't necessarily feature the campaign, we've stayed, you know, in contact with after the campaign, and have then gone on to feature us later as an e-commerce company. So I think playing a long game in that early phase is like, if you actually want to create a company, not just a Kickstarter campaign, you've got to think, okay, how can I create solid, long-lasting relationships, both with community and with the people that are writing or speaking about the Kickstarter campaign and the product.
So in the early days when you were interacting with this community, did you show them sketches of the backpack? Did you tell them what features and ask them what kind of features? How did you help design the product before you actually had it finalized? Yeah,
so there was initially just the feature set. I think that was the first post on the forum, was, okay, here's a bunch of features. What do you like? What do you don't like? It may have even been, actually the first post may have been like, what do you hate about your current carry-on bag? And seeing whether that meshed with what we were trying to do. And as it turned out, it was. So then we posted the feature set and said, hey, how about this solution? And refine that based on feedback, and then posted sketches in there, and then from there made a prototype, posted a picture of the prototype and described how it worked, and then went through the sampling process. So once we found a manufacturer to work with the prototype, then you sample and you iterate each time. You don't just go straight into production. So we had, I guess, maybe 9 or 10 rounds of sampling, and each time we would just not only post that on the forum, but also hustle around Saigon in Vietnam, where we were. And there were enough location independent entrepreneurs and digital nomads and generally smart people there that we could just run around in the tropical thunderstorms and bang on their door and come in and get their carpet wet and ask them about what they thought about the bag. And, you know, a lot of things that we thought were cool turned out to be universally not cool. And those were, you know, we just wouldn't have found that stuff out, especially given that we didn't have a background in product design. So yeah, at every stage, it was sharing with that community, and without that, again, it wouldn't have been a success.
And then question for you with the blogs. Did you tell these people, the authors, basically, hey, our Kickstarter is not coming out till this date. Please don't post anything about us before then? Or what's that process like?
Yeah, that's a good question. It was a funny process. Obviously the first time we'd ever done it. And that is what we did. We said, okay, here's the draft, because on Kickstarter specifically, you get to do a draft page for people to review that's private. And yeah, it was, here's our draft page. We're going to launch on this date. Would love you to, feature it and blah, blah, blah. One blog posted it early, which was interesting because they had nothing to post it to. I mean, there was no campaign yet, so I don't know what they did. We had someone accidentally post it early, and then we had people, just not even understand what the whole concept of Kickstarter was about. So we did a little bit of education there. But yeah, overall, that system worked pretty well despite the issues with a few people posting early. It was, okay, sure, I understand. Here's what I'm wondering. Now that I've looked at your preview page, here's what I'm wondering about it. And that actually helped shape the eventual page, because obviously we could still change it. It was still a draft. So some of the best feedback on that page came from the media or the bloggers who we were messaging about it. If they didn't understand something, then obviously a bunch of other people weren't going to understand it either. So it helped us refine it and improve it.
And how did you encourage the bloggers to want to post about it? Did you give them a free sample, or how does that work?
We didn't do free samples, really. We really focused on, I think, long relationships. We started by hitting up people that we knew already, which wasn't that many people, but just enough. We had a small circle of people, and then they knew people. So it was like, okay, so that's a warm intro that we can then say, hey, here's what we're doing, and they're going to not delete us immediately out of their inbox. And then moving on from there, maybe they haven't another, one network out from that, or just a cold email, not trying to pitch too hard, basically. It was not, hey, like, I don't really care about you, but you should write about our bag. It was like, hey, here we are. Like, I've seen these things you've written about. I'd love to let you know about this thing we're doing that really matches that, and here's why it's awesome, and hopefully you're interested in writing about it. And if not, that's fine. And I think, a lot of people would pitch much harder than we do, and that's probably works a lot better in a lot of ways. But for us, it's always been about the long game, and we want to actually have real relationships with people that are long-lasting and really mutually beneficial. So it was less about just getting them to write about the campaign, and more about just starting something. And if they wrote about it, that was just a really cool bonus. And I think that overall approach kind of comes through in little ways that maybe are even subconscious to people.
Okay. Another question for you is, the video seems to be really important on Kickstarter, and you guys have a pretty good video. Do you have any advice on creating a good video for Kickstarter?
I do. I have much more advice than we have time for. I mean, it is so important. You're right. And there was a stat that came out of Kickstarter, something like, if people watch to the end of your video, they're 85% more likely to back you, or something crazy like that. So, and that you can't hack that by making a 5-second video, by the way. You've got to make a decent video, but it is just an insanely powerful thing. I mean, it's not just in Kickstarter, it's in e-commerce as well. If you have videos, people are X times more likely to buy. Hugely important. I used to work in film. That was my previous semi-career. And I think the lesson that I took from that was, it's all about the story. So don't just get up on screen and tell people why your thing is awesome. Tell them a story. Tell them the beginning, the middle, and the end. In ours, we talk about where we've been, that we love travel, that we felt this problem with our bags, and that's why we wanted to create one for ourselves. And then the final part was the Kickstarter, and the only thing that was left is to get people backing. So yeah, telling a story is super important. I can say, go and study 3-act structure. It might seem crazy to be studying like Shakespearean stuff if you're doing a Kickstarter video, but really anything that you can do to learn from classical storytelling is applicable for a Kickstarter video as well. And really, when making a video, I think a lot of crowdfunding videos in particular focus on talking about themselves. And it's obviously important to get your own story across, but really the most crucial thing is to get people excited about what it means for them. And our only aim was to get people watching 5 more seconds of the video. Like every single thing, we were breaking it down to the tiniest element and thinking, okay, is this going to get people watching 5 more seconds? Because if you do that enough times, they reach the end of the video and it's all good. But I think, getting that story to not only be about you, but about the product and how it fits into people's lives is super crucial, because people are nice and generous and want to help and want to see something get off the ground, but in the end, everyone's self-interested, right? And that's a fantastic thing, because you can use that to really bring them into the story and improve your chances of getting funded.
The last thing I want to talk about as far as Kickstarter is the different levels of backers, both the low levels and the high levels, because that's something I find really interesting. So with the low levels, I saw you guys have $1, a $10, or you had $1, $10, and $25 level. But for instance, the $1 level is like a, hey, we'll give you a street high five, like a thank you. And you had about 81 backers on that level. Is that something you'd recommend to a new Kickstarter to do, the small, like the $1 or $10 levels?
It's definitely a contested space whether you should be doing that or not. We talked to a bunch of people, got advice for and against that sort of thing. It's not worth it in terms of, I mean, forgetting about the $1 level for a second, but like the $25 level, for instance, the percentage of money that brought in versus the time that it took to fulfill that, because we did socks, for instance, and so there was sizing issues and all that sort of stuff. The percentage was way lower money-wise than that. Was, we probably spent 60-70% of our time on the damn socks, and so it's like it wasn't worth it in that sense. Mm-hmm. But in saying that, sites like Kickstarter really do care about how many people are backing, not just how much they're backing. So if it helps you to get a fast start when you launch, having a bunch of people doing $1 and $10 pledges is totally worthwhile, because it's more people piling on top and saying, yeah, this is popular, I like it. And once you get that momentum early, the algorithm starts picking you up and saying, oh, this is a hot project, and then it sort of snowballs from there. So yeah, I mean, while it was, it felt at times like a bit of a miscalculation on our part to do things like the $25 level. I think it was really cool to get people on. Not everyone could get a bag, or not everyone needed a bag. So to have people get something tangible out of the project, and also feel like they were helping it come to fruition was a really cool thing to be able to do. So. It remains to be seen what we do for the next one. We might have some flashback nightmares about dealing with those socks, but I think it is definitely worthwhile having lower levels just to give people a chance to be involved and register their support.
And you also had some higher levels, like a $500 and a $2,000 level. And did you see a lot of benefit out of those higher levels?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, what we did with those was we made sure that those high levels weren't just more product; it was bringing people closer to us. So if you want to be an insider, some people are willing to pay for that, and that's awesome. So the sort of things we were doing were like direct communication with them. And kind of calls and product design courses and all this sort of stuff where people who wanted to learn, this sort of thing that I'm talking about in this interview, and a bunch of different stuff from our experience could get that access and really learn what happens inside a young product business. And we were super pumped about that as well. I mean, it wasn't completely based around a benefit for them. I mean, we were really excited to talk to people who had cool ideas and see how they progressed and all that sort of stuff. And to be honest, it's taken longer to prepare that than we expected. I would say that is like anything that requires personal involvement in other people's projects does take a lot longer than you expect it to. But I think that those were really, really valuable in seeing who was interested in getting closer to the fire, closer to that inside engine room. And the other thing is that I would recommend always going for I think the top limit, at least when we did it, for a pledge is $10,000, and I would always recommend putting a $10,000 pledge option, because A, if someone does it, that's awesome, and you've got $10,000 minus expenses, and B, it makes all the other ones look smaller. So $500 seems like a lot less when there's a 10 grand sitting on top of it.
For the 2000, so it was people that were not only interested in your backpack, but they had their own idea and they wanted to get basically feedback from you. Is that how it worked?
Yeah. That actually went right to the $500 level. So it was, yeah, they were people who had ideas or knew they wanted to do something, and just maybe didn't know the next steps, or were keen to see how we had done it and compare notes, and really shared knowledge and build from there. So basically, cool people doing cool stuff, and wanting to talk with people who are a couple of steps further down the road than them.
And then how was that differentiated from the $2,000 level?
So initially, the 2000 was an in-person event, and then we realized actually halfway through the campaign that was only going to work if we had sort of four or more people. And so we didn't get that many $2,000 pledges. So we changed it to being a digital course, which was always going to be the way for the $500 level anyway. So it's basically a digital course that we do remotely with people around the world, which is pretty cool.
And did you advertise for this on like e-commerce type blogs or anything like that, or was this just people that found the Kickstarter and happened to also want to start a business?
Yeah, good question. It's a couple of years ago now. I don't really remember, but I think we were involved with the e-commerce crowd for sure. I don't know if we specifically did any outreach or advertising or anything like that to that audience, but definitely, we knew people in the scene, and maybe there was a bit of talk going around, but most of the people who went for that level we didn't know, and I think just found us randomly through Kickstarter.
Okay. So I want to talk now about post-Kickstarter, and a lot of people that are really successful on Kickstarter tend to do nothing. Some of them don't even make an effort after Kickstarter, and it seems like you guys have been doing a pretty good job after Kickstarter. So I guess first question, after a successful Kickstarter, what advice would you give someone on going forward?
It's a really tough one. I think completely different game in a lot of ways. Generally, the thing that we've done, and this is not necessarily the only way to do it or even the best way to do it, but what we've done is we've really focused on making our current users super stoked on the experience of being a user, rather than focusing on new customers and really dramatic growth. It's been more about enhancing that experience of being part of the Kickstarter, and then following on from that as well. And I think secondly, we try and spread the stories that our users are creating, rather than talking about ourselves all the time. So a lot of companies, again, are just saying, hey, like, we just got funding and we did this and we went to this trade show. It's like, no one really cares about that, dude. I think the best advertisement for your product is cool people doing cool stuff with it. And in our case, that's on their back, but whatever it is, even if it's a software product, cool people doing cool stuff like that. That should be a rule of thumb. And if you can tell those stories, it just makes it a lot easier to advertise. Really, I mean, it is an advertisement, but it's actually like a really cool thing, a cool story to tell. There's so much. I mean, that's kind of the user side of things. There's the technological side of it as well. I don't know if you want to hear about that.
Yes, absolutely. I love that stuff.
Okay, so I would say on the crowdfunding side itself, like, depending on which one you choose, whether it's Indiegogo or Kickstarter or anything, read everything you can about whatever platform you choose. There's a lot of resources out there now. You can make use of those. Try and talk to the staff at those platforms if you can get past the gatekeepers that keep you away. What we did was we looked at every single crowdfunding campaign in our category. So every single bag, luggage, backpack crowdfunding campaign on both Indiegogo and Kickstarter, and tried to learn from their successes and their failures, and try to talk to those people as well. There's a really great write-up by John O'Nolan from Ghost, which is another Kickstarter-funded company, on how to do Kickstarter, and that's a super awesome resource that I always point people to. I think, on the post-Kickstarter website side, just making it as simple as possible for people to buy. So Yeah, keeping your site as basic, like as as few clicks as possible for people to be putting in their credit card information. You're making it easier for them. Don't make life difficult. Don't make them click through a bunch of stuff and read all about you and how you love this company and all that. It's like, no, like let me buy a bag. And we try and make it as simple as possible for people to do that. And finally, with the building the design and the copy and everything, it's talking about the potential customer and the benefits for them rather than why I'm awesome and why my product's awesome. Again, like I said before, people are always motivated by self-interest, so that's actually awesome. If you're making a high-quality product that's going to improve their life, you want people to be self-interested. And I think we've really tried to focus on how will this help you live the lifestyle that you want to live.
Did you have a website during the entire time that you had the Kickstarter, or is it something that you started as the Kickstarter was becoming successful?
It's all a bit of a chaotic blur at this point, but we had a placeholder website, which was just a one-pager that kind of had a picture, a totally crappy picture of the bag at a sunset that I took randomly one night, and it it had a bit of an explanation about the bag and a couple of lines about who we were and what we were trying to do, and then a link to the Kickstarter page. Excuse me, and then after that, it was just the Kickstarter page for quite a long time, and then just the day we launched our website. I mean, the day that we made the bags available for public use was when we, in a panicked rush, finally put the finishing touches on the website. So it was, I guess, from September 2013 until April 2014 that we didn't have a proper website. But we knew it was going to be super important to invest in that and have a long-term plan for building the business beyond just this crowdfunding campaign. And I think so many of the decisions you make, even before you launch the crowdfunding campaign, are crucial later on. So you really, if you want to make it a long-term business, you've got to be thinking about, okay, how does this play out 6 months down the line, a year down the line? Am I making the right decisions for the business, not just this campaign?
I want to go back for a second. Something you said earlier really stuck with me, and it was the whole idea of making the user experience as awesome as possible. And what you do to make the user experience? I mean, obviously you have a quality product, but then after that, I kind of struggled to think about what else can you do to improve their experience with it. So what did you guys do?
We really focused on the community and the lifestyle. So, one more product side thing we did is we make our support. We invest a lot in our support. If you get in touch with us for any reason, we're going to get back to you pretty quickly, and you're going to be talking to a real person, and they're going to be a traveler as well, and they're going to be really knowledgeable about the product and be able to answer your questions and help you, and not just be limited to kind of scripted replies. We're happy to trade tips on travel to different countries and visas and all this sort of stuff, and really just have conversations rather than give service or support. So that's one thing we invest a lot in. And the other thing is, just really trying to facilitate the lifestyle. So talking to or broadcasting things to help people on the road. So whether it's, okay, here's a great co-working space in Tokyo, to, okay, there's a meetup for digital nomads in Saigon or Medellin or wherever it is. It's just establishing our various accounts on social media as the ones who are going to tell you when cool stuff's happening, and really trying to bring people together to cross-pollinate their cool ideas with other cool ideas. Because I know that that's something that we really struggled with before we found our community. Is, when I was living in Taiwan, it was a pretty lonely time because I had friends, but I had no one doing what I was doing, no one working on this crazy startup business. And I think a lot more people are on the road working on startups now, and if we can do our little bit to get them together and having a couple of beers and talking about cool stuff and maybe even starting a business together or getting married or whatever it is, it's like helping good people have good times is like a something that we really try and facilitate.
And I know you guys are on the road all the time, so do you handle all the customer service yourself, or how have you gone about hiring someone else to do that?
I mean, for a very long time, we did it all ourselves. We did everything ourselves. It was just the two of us for a very long time. And now we have a small team, and the support role was advertised late last year. Actually, it was my brother for a while. It's just in between jobs, my brother was like, "Oh, can I do some support?" And so we said yes. And when he moved on, it was our first ever role ad, and we put it out there and found someone amazing. And she's a nomad just like we are, and totally gets the vibe, and is really into the product, and we're very lucky to have her.
Where did you post that job?
It's a website. We posted a bunch of different places, but probably the biggest one was called Escape the City. So that's, I mean, if people are looking for roles out there, it's a pretty good one to check out. I think it seems to be quite England focused at the moment. I know they're attempting to make it much more broad, and to be honest, the person we got is not from England. But I mean, it's definitely a worthwhile place to go to look for roles or advertise for your own company. And I should actually also mention that we're still very, very involved in that support and that community stuff. It's not like we just handed it over. Even though our support person is amazing, I think it's so crucial to keep people really happy and stoked and feeling like we care about them, because we do. That we really spend a lot of time overseeing it or supervising it or coordinating it or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely. I have an e-commerce store, and at a certain point, it becomes you don't have enough time. You need to hire someone else to manage some of the emails. But at the same time, I've had a lot of friends that hire people that don't give the same amount of love that they'd give, and that's obviously a big problem. You need someone that's going to care,
Exactly, and I think that's the big point when you're hiring is it's got to be based around culture. I think in the new economy, or whatever you want to call it, both on the, if you're looking for a job or a role, it's like you need to realize that new types of businesses are primarily looking for cultural fit, and don't care so much about what looks good on paper and where you went to college and all that sort of stuff. And on the business side, it's like, that's what you should be doing. You should be hiring for cultural fit, and aptitude, like ability and willingness to learn, I think, is the biggest thing. It's like, I don't care if you know how to use our support software already, because if you're great at learning and you more importantly care about what we're doing and care about the people who are writing to you, that's going to make the difference in your service and support.
Absolutely. Last question I want to ask you about the business side of things is, so you talked about reaching out to blogs and people like that, and it sounds like the best way to get featured on blogs is to really develop a personal connection. And my question is if you're reaching out to newspapers or media outlets, do you have the same kind of attitude where you try to really foster a relationship, or is there a different way to go about it?
Yeah, I think that's a fair question, because they do operate very differently to the more blog side of things. But I do think it's the same. It's like potentially people working in say newspapers or the bigger media outlets have less time, right? So you need to be aware of that. You need to cut down how much you're telling them. But I still think that they're definitely still people. So if you can very, very quickly show like, hey, I'm aware of your previous work. I know why this would be interesting to you. Like, the worst thing you can do is send something to someone who just doesn't care. Someone who writes about cars doesn't care about what we're doing with travel, right? So if the person is relevant, then you need to know why they're relevant, quote that back to them, show that you've actually done your research, which you should have, and then very quickly get into it. Whereas something more like a niche blog, this person makes their life out of, looking at this sort of gear and really getting deep into it and talking back and forth. So you have the luxury of being able to use a few more words. But I think it's still showing people, hey, this is not some robot kind of mass emailing you a message. It's like, I know your name, I know your byline, I know what you've written before, and here's why I think this would be a cool thing to write about. And I mean, that's their job. They want to write about things, right? They just get a million things pitched to them every day, so they're very jaded and tired of it, which we all would be in that position. So you've just got to give people reasons why they should be stoked about writing about you.
Awesome answer. So last question I want to ask you, and from this whole conversation, you've obviously lived a pretty cool, pretty interesting life, and I wanted to ask you if you have any general advice for people in their 20s, or any advice you wish you would have had earlier on, maybe when you were, early to mid 20s.
There's no advice I wish I'd had. I think I got pretty good advice all the way through. My parents were super supportive, and it was actually Dad who told me to stop wasting time going back and forth between jobs and just go full time on what our plans were. But I think a rule of thumb that I always used, and I look back on, I was like, yep, that was the right rule of thumb to use, was what am I going to – sorry, I'll start that again. One rule of thumb that I look back on and think that was really the right rule of thumb to use was, which side of this decision am I going to regret more when I'm 40? And so if I was choosing between, staying at work and doing another few months or going over to Asia to search for manufacturers, it was always like, yeah, I'm totally going to regret not going to Asia and looking for manufacturers, and having life rules of thumb or criteria for making decisions that bias you towards action and towards doing cool stuff. Like your 20s is the time to do that, So having stuff like which decision am I going to regret more when I'm 40 is definitely biasing you towards action. And I think looking back on all the decisions I made with that little rule of thumb was, yeah, they were all the right decisions.
And Jimmy, where can people find out more about you and about the bag?
They can go to Minaal.com. That's Minaal.com.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks, guys, for listening to this episode. And you can get the show notes by going to my website, howtodoyour20s.com. That's howtodoyour20s.com. And while you're at the website, you can sign up for free bonus podcasts that I've done that I never released on iTunes, I never released on Stitcher, any of that kind of stuff. The only way to get them is by going to the website and putting your email in the top little box. When you put your email in there, I'll send you a link to all the bonus episodes I've done, including a very special episode that I did that was all about setting and achieving goals. And for this episode, I probably spent about 50 hours just doing research on how to set and achieve goals. And I actually dissected how you can set and achieve better goals. And the stuff that I learned throughout researching this episode has helped me in so many ways. I'm so much more productive now, and it's actually really helped me establish a daily routine that I'm really proud of. So go to howtodoyour20s.com, put your email in that top little box, and I'll send you a link that will not only have that bonus episode, but all future bonus episodes I do, and I'm planning on releasing a new one pretty soon, so I recommend going over there and checking it out. But thank you guys so much for listening to this episode, and remember, I have a new episode for you every Monday, so I hope to talk to you guys again next Monday. Have a great week. And hey guys, I hope you enjoyed that video. And if you did, make sure you hit the big red subscribe button down below. You can also check me out on Facebook and on Twitter. And I release a new video every Monday. And by hitting that subscribe button, you'll get those new videos every Monday. And this is really a podcast. It's also a website. You can check out the website. It's howtodoyour20s.com. I'll put a link right over here as well. And what it's all about is trying to improve your life. And we specifically focus on things that people in their 20s are interested in. So make sure you like the video if you liked it. Subscribe. Like us on Facebook and Twitter, whatever. But I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope to see you again on another video.